Mahima introduced, I'm Premanku, currently a senior product manager with Atlassian. For folks who are not aware of Atlassian, it is basically the organization that builds products like Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket, some of those. I work on Atlassian Marketplace, which is essentially a two-sided marketplace for for developers to build products on top of our Atlassian first-party products and then sell it over, sell it to the Atlassian customers. So you can think of it as a Google Play Store or an Apple App Store for Atlassian apps. All right. So with that, we will get started. Our agenda today, or what we want to cover today, is GTM, right? Which is, I would say, one of the key aspects of product management that nobody really knows about until they start seriously thinking about product management, right? We all think about product development, product research, right? A bunch of things, but product management is also a very, very key aspect of a product manager's journey, which we will talk about a little bit today, right? So let's keep this interactive. I'll ask you some questions as we go, and then would love to see what your responses are, right? So to start with, first question. Imagine you are launching a brand new smartphone in a highly competitive market like India, right? So we have all sorts of phone in India, right? We have phones right from some of the economical phone developers to the Apples of the world, the Samsungs of the world, etc. Now you're also launching a smartphone in this competitive market. How do you think you would create buzz around your product and ensure that it stands out from the crowd? Can everybody type in what do they think they would do in order to make this phone successful? Influencer marketing. Okay, thanks, Dwanit. Any other ideas? Any other unique ideas that you would do? Value propositions, specifications, and rates, right? What else? We have to offer discounts. We'll have to do digital marketing. Anything else? Ads. Okay, perfect. Benchmarking. All right. Focus on one feature like Vivo camera's phone. Pretty amazing, right? So that's actually a very good point. How do you find the value proposition that the user segment looks at, and how do you encash on that? Brand ambassadors, amazing, right? So all of those great answers, right? And I think you've hit the hammer on the nail. So a lot of amazing products, right, face the challenges not because the product is not amazing, right, but because the go-to-market game is not as strong. As a result, what happens is sometimes even some of the best of the products do not succeed, and sometimes even certain mediocre products end up gaining a lot of market share, mind share from the users, right? So even if it is a mediocre product, they get launched, they get a lot of mind share, right? And if the company is able to move very quickly on improving the features of that product, they're able to sustain as well, right? The reverse is also true. If you're building a bad product, you're doing a lot of marketing, it also dies out faster, right? So GTM actually has a huge role to play when it comes to making a product successful, apart from actually building a product that actually solves problems for its customers, right? All right. Next question. Imagine that you have a time machine which can take you back to any iconic product launch in history. Which product launch would you choose and why? Any favorite product launch? Fevicol ads, Amul ads, Nano, iPhone, cosmetics, Apple phone by Steve Jobs, right? So all of you are right. All of those are amazing product launches. And the one which I think is one of the most popular ones is by Steve Jobs, 2007, when he launched the first iPhone, right? Steve Jobs is a master marketeer, right? So he also happens to be a product management professional that rose up to become a CEO. But some of his key skills include thinking really, really big, and also being able to create a huge, he's also known for innovation, which is what Apple in general is also known for. But apart from that, he could create really amazing, product launches. And in fact, one of the gentlemen that I've worked with in the past actually worked with Steve Jobs when this particular iPhone was launched. And he would mention, right, in some of the meetings how Steve Jobs spent so many days perfecting the pitch that he delivered on 2007, launching this particular iPhone, right? So we'll take a quick glimpse at a 4-minute video of that launch. I think a lot of you might have already seen it, but just for others who have not, let's take a quick look at how Steve Jobs positioned iPhone during that launch. So over to a video. And if you're not able to listen to it, please let us know, so we'll fix the audio. Is it audible?
Yes, Premanku, we can hear it.
Okay.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Macro 2007 keynote address.
Good morning. James Brown. So thank you. Thank you for coming. We're going to make some history together today. This is a day I've been looking forward to for 2.5 years. Every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything. And Apple has been, well, first of all, one's very fortunate if you get to work on just one of these in your career. Apple's been very fortunate. It's been able to introduce a few of these into the world. In 1984, we introduced the Macintosh. It didn't just change Apple, it changed the whole computer industry. In 2001, we introduced the first iPod. And it didn't just change the way we all listen to music. It changed the entire music industry. Well, today, we're introducing 3 revolutionary products of this class. The first one is a widescreen iPod with touch controls. The second is a revolutionary mobile phone. And the third is a breakthrough internet communications device. So, 3 things: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. And here it is. There we go, right there. And to unlock the phone, I just take my finger and slide it across.
All right. So, hope you guys enjoyed looking at how Steve Jobs launched iPhone, right? And of course, it was an amazing product, right? When the entire industry, take Nokia, take BlackBerry, were moving towards increasing the number of keys on the keypad. Steve Jobs and Apple was actually thinking about how can they utilize that remaining 40% of the phone where the keys are and turn it into a giant screen, which everybody can use, right? But I think the key is all great products become great not just because of how good the products are, but also how great the marketing is, right? And if you look at Steve Jobs's pitch, you will see how he could take a very, very complex idea and then within 3 to 4 minutes get the room so excited. You can see the energy in the room about launching the phone, right? So that is only one aspect of GTM, but I just wanted to kick us off with this particular video. Cool. So let's get started, right? So I think what I'm going to explain you now is something that I've already spoken about, right? GTM is go-to-market, which we are talking about, and we will come to what is the definition, what is it all about, etc. But I'm just building up, our journey towards it, right? It's all about how do you market and how do you take the product in the market, Ilyas, right? So if you think about great businesses, what are they really based on, right? And I'm talking about product business, of course, not traditional pop and mom businesses. So they're based on two things, right? One is a great product. You cannot have a great business built on a subpar or a mediocre product, right? You absolutely need a great product, and which is where you need great product managers, great engineering teams, finding out the right challenge that you need to solve for the customer, and building it right, iterating quickly. All of those things are part of product management, right? So that is absolutely necessary. But apart from that, what's also super important is great marketing and branding, right? So branding is a little bit of a tangential aspect, which we'll not focus on today. But if you think about an organization like Apple, and if you think about the price of the product or the value that the logo carries, it's huge, right? So let me ask this group, if a company were selling a 150,000 iPhone, same exact amount of features, it just doesn't have the Apple logo, what is the price you would pay for that phone? Can we get some numbers on the chat? 25,000, okay. All right, 50,000, right? 30, 40,000, right? So roughly about, okay, Ilyas would pay 1 lakh, which is amazing, right? So roughly about, mostly in the range of 40 to 50,000 is what this group thinks, right? And you're absolutely right. To manufacture an Apple phone, Apple actually spends about 30 to 40% of the price that we end up paying, right? The rest of the money is the brand money, right? But that takes time to build, right? I can't come in as a new organization and say that I'm going to charge a premium on the product, right? So that is definitely one aspect. And great brands are again built through two things: great products and great marketing, right? So the aspect that we are going to focus on in today's discussion is going to market, which is all about how do you take an amazing product and put it in the hands of the right individuals, send them the right message, find them on the right channels, and then market the product, right? So GTM is all about doing that, right? So it's marketing plus a little bit more, and we'll talk about what those little bit of more things are as well, right? So Jack Butcher, who's also a master marketer, says this: right? Essentially to differentiate between what is product and marketing, right? So product is what you believe, right? As a product manager, what you believe. Marketing is about how do you get it to other people to believe it, right? Now, like I mentioned, great businesses, and this quote reiterates that, is built on great products as well as great marketing, right? Now, there is another part to this, right? So if we remove great product from the equation, and if we just have great marketing, it doesn't result in a great business, right? And we have had some examples in history which has proven this, right? So take the example of, let me ask this group, do you know of a product which is not great, but has good marketing and did not survive? Any examples? Great marketing, bad product, did not survive. Byju's, Nano, all good examples. All right, so they're all great examples, right? One of the historical examples for this is Windows Vista. When Windows Vista was launched, Microsoft actually considered it one of their most revolutionary products, and they spent millions of dollars doing GTM, right? They did ads, they did conferences, they worked with channel partners, they integrated the software in their devices, launched them, etc., right? But despite that, of course, because of this GTM, the product saw a huge sales initially, right? But eventually, the product started failing because of performance issues, right? One of the largest challenges with a Windows Vista software was that it would not work with, lower configuration hardware, which everybody already had. So if somebody had to use a Windows Vista properly, they would have to upgrade to a higher version of the software, right? And then there were other performance challenges. So great marketing, not so great product, did not work very well, right? So essentially, both of these things are super important. But you can see how great marketing could still give them a lot of sales initially, and then it started dying down, right? So like this quote states, build a great product, but also build a great marketing so that you can make people believe in your product and use it, right? So now let's talk about what is GTM strategy, right? So this is broadly, one of the closest definitions that I could come to from a GTM strategy perspective, which talks about everything that is included in GTM, right? So if I haven't spoken about earlier, GTM stands for going to market, right? It is how you take a product to the market, right? So, so what exactly is GTM? Yes, Twanat, we will come to some more practical, right? Some more practical examples of how GTM works. So give it a minute and we'll be there, right? So GTM is the art of introducing a product in the market, identifying the appropriate audience, timing, pricing, and effectively conveying the product's value proposition in a way that is easily comprehensible and encourages adoption by potential customers. Can you guys hear me fine?
Yes, Premanku, I can hear you well.
Okay, perfect. I think there was some feedback on the chat. Okay, perfect. So there are a bunch of things that is mentioned here which GTM needs to include, right? It is the appropriate audience. How do you find the right audience that you will go and pitch your product to, right? A product could have different segments. For example, if it is a Mercedes car, you might have a high earning individual who buys the car. You could also have a few individuals who are enthusiastic, who don't earn as much, but still would buy the car, right? But there is a specific segment that Mercedes targets, right? Which in a GTM world is called as an ideal customer profile, right? So that is super important when it comes to a GTM, right? Finding the right audience to go and target, because GTM costs money and you want to focus your money on those individuals who will give you the largest conversion in terms of the product, right? Timing and pricing are important, right? What kind of a market are you introducing your product to? For example, Netflix, right? Netflix was super popular in the US, but when Netflix was introduced in India, it did not do very well. And the reason why it did not do very well was a couple of things from the product standpoint, but a main reason for that was also pricing, right? So pricing is also important when you're introducing a product in the market, right? So that is also part of GTM. And then effectively conveying the product's value proposition, right? What does value proposition mean? I think all of us are aware, but in a nutshell, it means how can I very easily talk about the product to the ideal customer profile in a way that they easily understand and grasp what the product is for, right? So for example, if I'm selling a Mercedes to an individual, right? They don't care about how much is the mileage of the car, right? Or things like that. They would care about luxury. They would care about exclusivity, right? But when you're selling a Tata car, right? You would actually start worrying about, or a Suzuki car, right, which is less than 10 lakhs. You would actually pitch it based on the mileage that it provides, right? Because the segment cares about that. So all of those things, the positioning, etc., is super important when it comes to GTM strategy. Okay, I think there are a couple of questions, so I can maybe take some questions and then we can move on. Solving the burning problem of customers' value proposition, that is correct. Sorry to interrupt, but can you also say if I have new product, how will a GTM work there? Yes, absolutely. So if you have a new product, let's take the example of OnePlus phone, right? I don't know how many of you remember when OnePlus phone was launched. Nobody knew about OnePlus, right? The popular products in the phone world were iPhone and Samsung in India, right? OnePlus per se was not a very, very widely funded company, right? But they had a very clear value proposition that they are going to build an iPhone-like phone, which has very high configurations and at a price which is less than 50% of the price of an iPhone, right? When they came to launch it, they also did not have a lot of money to market themselves, right? They couldn't hire a lot of celebrities to market themselves. They did not have a huge brand, right? So they chose they did not have the money to set up stores, right? Which was one of the most popular ways in which products or phones were sold in the other geographies as well as India, right? So they took a very unique way of bringing the product to the market. Does anybody remember what that unique way was? Yes, referrals, right? They were the first company in the phone space that actually introduced referrals, right? They solved a bunch of things using that, right? And online retailing as well, right? They launched on Amazon, right? Now the invite thing solved a few things, right? One is it brought in exclusivity, right? It made sure that the phone reaches the right population, right? And they used word of mouth as a way to popularize the product, right? And over a period of time, they made the right product. It gained popularity, right? Almost, I think, 6 or 7 years later is when they hired their first celebrity to come in and do ads, right? I think they hired Amitabh Bachchan and probably an international celebrity to do that, right? So generally, when it is a new product, of course, if you're a Reliance, you can do multiple things, right? Even if it is a new product. But if you're a smaller company, you could get creative about how you launch your products. All right. So let's see if there are any questions on the questionnaire. Okay, so Amit has a question. Is product management more closer to marketing or operations profile? What are the key skills that are important for a product manager? Okay, so I'll answer this question at this point, and then we will move on, or maybe let's take this question towards the end, right? But at a very, very high level, I would say product management as a role is closer to both of these things, right? And they're closer to many, many more roles as well, right? Which is where you will see product managers coming in from several backgrounds, right? Product managers come from engineering backgrounds, product managers come from operations backgrounds, customer success backgrounds, sales backgrounds, marketing backgrounds, right? They also come from some non-technical backgrounds altogether, right? I've seen product managers who were doctors who became product managers, right? So essentially, product managers can come from any kind of backgrounds, right? I'll talk about what are the key skills, Amit, but let's continue on the GTM side. All right. So let's talk about an example of a B2B product, which is Salesforce. So Salesforce, for those of you who are not aware, I think most of us must be aware of it, but it is the leader in building CRM or customer relationship management products, right? These are products which are used by salespeople in order to track their leads, convert them into actual opportunities, right? A lot of B2B companies actually do their sales via salespeople, right? So these are sales-heavy companies like software organizations like Microsoft Azure, AWS, Windows. All of these are pretty sales-heavy organizations, right? So whenever you need to sell to a business, you need sales, and Salesforce creates softwares which help salespeople automate and track all of their sales processes, right? Now, a company like Salesforce, in order to launch their product, right, they don't generally do a lot of B2C marketing that you would see on a daily basis, right? Like, for example, they wouldn't hire an Amitabh Bachchan or a celebrity to launch a sales cloud or a marketing cloud, right? But there is still a lot that goes behind in order to create a huge, vibrant ecosystem, so that whenever they're creating the products, they can get it into the hands of the right population, right? So if you think about Salesforce, they are building products for salesmen, right? And what is crucially important for them is to find out where and how can I popularize my product and reach out to the salespeople, right? So they do a bunch of different things, right? So one is they've created a community, right? So if you go to Salesforce community, for example, right, they have enabled a huge group of community people who will come, and they themselves are, proponents and advocates of Salesforce, right? So they will come and engage. They'll help each other in people who are using Salesforce, make them aware of the benefits of Salesforce or certain products, etc., solve each other's questions, right? So they found a very interesting way in which they can market some of their products through their community users, right? Apart from that, they also create a lot of thought leadership material, right? So Salesforce is a leader in quality in sales material building, but they also go and build a lot of content around sales, right? So even if you're not a user of Salesforce, when you go and search for a sales related material, you will find some content, right? That will land you to Salesforce's website, and that will sort of take you inside their products and make you aware of their products, right? So a very, very key, crucial, go-to-market strategy that Salesforce utilizes whenever they launch their products, right? They have a world-class sales team. Salesforce is a sales-led organization, which means there are salespeople, they have the right tactics. So whenever they launch a product, they would reach out to their existing customers or find new customers, explain them what the product is about, and do sales. They also do multi-channel marketing, right? So they would also do ads. They would not do an ad on TV, right? Or they would not sell an ad on an IPL, right? But they would do ads where they find the right customers, right? So they would go to LinkedIn, find out who are the right salespeople, and show them ads. They're also known for clear communication and branding, which is key for most of the GTMs, right? They have a huge partner ecosystem as well, right? So Salesforce virtually cannot make the kind of money that they make if they were only selling by themselves, right? They would they actually have a vibrant ecosystem of a lot of other sellers that sell on behalf of Salesforce, right? So somebody might be selling to a JP Morgan, somebody might be selling to an Accenture, right? Salesforce can't do all of these sales, right? So they bring in a huge community of partner ecosystem that does these sales for them, right? And that's a very thought through process of how they take their products to the market. They also do a lot of product-led growth, right? Which is also one of the key aspects of GTM, right? As a consumer, especially if you're a consumer who's paying thousands or multi-$1,000 or sometimes even $100,000 and more for a software, you would want to understand how helpful is the product for you before you start using the product, right? And that is where some of the product-led growth tactics come in, where they would introduce trials, they would introduce demos, which allow the B2B businesses to use the product before they can go and launch it, right? And the other thing which Salesforce, by the way, specializes in, and it's known in the B2B industry, SaaS industry, is for their events, right? The quality of the events that they do. And you guys can go and Google Dreamforce, right? Which is their annual event, right? Many other B2B companies also have their annual events, right? So for example, AWS is reInvent, a couple of other companies have other kind of events, Atlassian is Team, but Salesforce is considered to be a leader in terms of how they conduct their events, get the right customers in the room for a couple of days, and really do their drum beating around all new products, all new features that they're building, get them super excited, and convert them into sales over a couple of months, quarters, etc. Right? So that's an example of an organization which does very, very compelling GTM when it comes to B2B products. All right, let's see if we have questions. Okay. All right, I think we have a couple of questions. I'll probably take them towards the end. Okay, Dhwanit, I think, is looking for some answers. Suppose it's consumer lifestyle product, then how GTM I can do? Suppose my company is small and not cash rich now. Consumer lifestyle product GTMs, I will decide. Suppose my company is small and not cash rich. Now to launch consumer lifestyle products. Okay, so very specific questions, Dhwanit, for GTM. So stay till the end of this session and I will explain you how can you do a GTM for a consumer lifestyle product as well. Okay, cool. So coming to what are the key elements of a GTM strategy, right? So some of this we have already spoken, but just to bring it from a definition perspective, what are the different things that you care about when you do GTM, right? So first, like we mentioned, you focus on who's your ideal user persona, right? In a GTM world, it is called as ICP, or ideal customer persona. So you find out who's the right audience, create the right message for them, and then go and target them, right? Then there's messaging and positioning. How do you create the right value proposition? How do you explain your customers what is the value that your product brings, right? Generally, when you're building a product, it could have various capabilities, right? For example, if you take a WhatsApp has chats, WhatsApp has video calling, WhatsApp has stories, which can keep you abreast of what your friends and relatives are doing. WhatsApp has groups, right? But if you really think about the key value proposition, or if WhatsApp were to create ads, they wouldn't go and create ads for all of these ancillary value propositions that they have, right? Their key value proposition is give you an ecosystem where all your friends and family are on a single network and you can chat with them without having to spend any money, right? Just over the internet. That's the key value proposition. And that's super important when you're marketing a product, right? Finding out those 1, 2, 3 key things which resonate the most with your customers and go and really talk about those to your customers, right? So So yeah, that's what is key when it comes to messaging and positioning. All right. Then the other aspect is pricing, right? So we spoke a little bit about it from a Netflix standpoint, but pricing is an aspect of go-to-market that we cannot ignore at all, right? And there are various pricing plays that the companies do, right? Some companies do something called as skimming pricing, right? Where they keep the price pretty high of the product, and they try to capture only a certain segment in the industry, right? Can you guys think of some products such as those, where the price is super high and the target is a very small segment of the iPhones, right? Ferraris, any luxury, Louis Vuitton, right? These are all examples of products which charge a premium on their products, and they are not in the business of finding a huge consumer segment, right? They are focused on a very limited segment. So that is called as skimming pricing, right? Similarly, there are companies which will actually charge very less on the products and make sure they can acquire a huge market segment, right? And their play is essentially in volume, right? So their profit margins are super less, but the way they actually become successful is by playing a volume game, right? So all great examples that are coming here, right? Jio, Reliance, these are all great examples of this kind of a pricing, which is called as penetration pricing, right? Sometimes these companies also play as loss leaders, right? Where they operate on losses, and then they would, grab the market, and then suddenly, once people are dependent on their products, they would, sometimes raise the prices, right? So that's the difference of pricing strategies that companies play, right? Skimming, penetration, and then there are certain companies that are in between as well, right? Who are not doing skimming, who are not doing penetration, right? Now I'll leave you guys with a thought on pricing, and then we will move on. If you think about three of the companies which have so far in the world reached close to a $1 trillion valuation, Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft, right? If you look at these three companies, you will understand that all these three have actually very different pricing models, right? So Apple plays on skimming. Amazon, e-commerce, right, is plays on penetration pricing, right? And then Microsoft is somewhere in between, right? It's neither as expensive as an Apple, nor is it playing in the most economical segments, right? So three companies, super different pricing models, but super successful in their own fields and reaching close to $1 trillion valuation, right? So they have found out where they want to play, who their customers are, and then really fix the pricing around it to get their game going, right? So pricing is super important again when it comes to creating a great go-to-market strategy, right? The next thing is marketing and sales plans, right? Now, generally, when we think about any product or any organization, they are one of two types, right? Either they are marketing heavy or they are sales heavy. If you consider any product which is low cost and is generally a B2C product, those products are generally more marketing heavy, right? For example, take the example of Colgate, or take the example of a t-shirt that you buy, right? You will never have a salesperson calling you and telling you that, hey, buy my toothpaste, right? Or buy my t-shirt, right? They will generally rely on marketing, right? So they will do ads, they will do digital ads, Instagram ads, newspaper ads, and things like that, right? So these companies are very, very marketing heavy. On the other hand, there are companies which are sales heavy, which are generally for higher value purchases, right? So take the example of enterprise software, right? Which is super expensive, takes a lot of time in terms of decision making, right? They wouldn't do a lot of marketing. They still do some marketing, but mostly rely on salespeople to sell the product, right? So again, when you're doing a GTM, depending on the type of product that you are launching, it is important for you to determine what kind of a GTM strategy you want to follow, and then prep your marketing team or sales team in order to take the product to the market and have the right messaging, right? So a lot of work goes on in terms of working with the marketing team and the sales team in terms of creating the plan when you're launching a product, right? Now, question to this group again is, can you think of a product which is both sales and which require both sales and marketing, right? Any examples that you guys can think of? Cars, right? Very good. So cars is actually a good example of products which rely on both sales as well as marketing, right? The reason for that is it is still a B2C product, right? But it is a high value product, right? So you don't, it's not that you buy a car every day, right? So it still is a decision that you need some time to ponder upon and then make an informed choice, right? So whenever there is a reason for you to think through something, whenever it's a high value thing, you would generally utilize a sales strategy as well, right? Then the next one is channel selection. So channel essentially, if some of you are from marketing on sales, it essentially means where will you reach your target segment, right? So took the example of LinkedIn, right? If you want to publish something about a software product for salespeople, you will not go and market that on Facebook, right? Because the audience that is on Facebook is very different, right? You would go to LinkedIn, target the right audience on LinkedIn, and then sell the products to that audience, right? Similarly, if you were selling a toothpaste, right? Or if you were selling, let's say, a gaming app on Google Store, right? Like Jungle Run or something else, right? You wouldn't go to LinkedIn and put your ad, right? So you would have to find where your audience is and really go there and publish and publish your ads or publish your marketing material, right? So that is what channel selection is all about, right? And I think through all of these things, one of the important things to remember is there are several things that you can do in order to take your product to market, make sure it reaches the right audience, etc. But you're always limited in terms of money, time, efforts, right? So you'll have to ensure that wherever you're investing, you're getting the highest bang for the buck, the highest return on investment, right? So which is where having a very tight GTM strategy becomes super important, right? So there are terms which we'll not go very deep into, right? But which are very core to product management, like a customer acquisition cost. What is the amount of money that you need to spend in order to acquire a customer, right? And how do you over a period of time get that down, right? So all of that is again part of your GTM strategy, right? And finally, there's launch timing, right? So all of those things are key important steps that we need to take care of when it comes to GTM. All right. So there's another example that I wanted to talk about, but Sonali, do you think we should take some questions at this point, or I see a lot of good chatter. Okay. So let's see.
Premanku, we can maybe take the questions in the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. So let's very quickly again skim through Spotify as a B2C product, right? How is it different from Salesforce when it comes to marketing strategies, right? So I'll probably take another 5 to 7 minutes talk through this, and then we can wrap up and take questions, right? So Spotify, we spoke about some of these things, right? ICPs, messaging, positioning, marketing channels, etc. Right? So there's a stark difference between how Salesforce as a B2B product would do marketing versus Spotify, which is a B2C product, would do marketing, right? So initially, when Spotify had launched, most of the people listen to pirated music, right? They would go to some of the pirated places, download MP3s load it on their devices, and then listen to music, right? There was also a lot of push at that point to move away from piracy, and that is where Spotify actually targeted that audience, where initially they targeted music enthusiasts who were frustrated with piracy and traditional music, right? So that is how Spotify actually launched themselves. It was not a product that was launched for everybody. But over a period of time, it's been several years that, more than 10 years that Spotify has been in business. They've actually expanded to broader geographical, broader demographics, right? Including casual listeners as well, right? So that's how, when they launched the product, they did not create it for everybody, but they targeted the right audience. And over a period of time, several customer segments started getting added in, right? So it also started as a English music channel, but from their GTM perspective, they wanted to go beyond English speaking geographies, right? So they had to bring in a lot of regional music in, right? So if you look at the mix now in India, it's not just Hindi, right? But they have several languages brought in into their mix, right? Which makes it pretty dynamic and gives them the opportunity to grow, right? But started with a very core segment of customers and then made the product successful and then expanded, right? So that is key when it comes to launching a product. Then there's messaging and positioning, right? So positioned it as a go-to platform for legal and convenient music streaming. People who did not want to worry about piracy, having to clean up their phone again because they've downloaded virus, things like that, right? So they emphasized on that, emphasized on a huge on-demand access to vast music libraries with personalized recommendations, right? So that is how they position. From a marketing perspective, again, I think all of us are aware of some parts of marketing that they do, right? So they market on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Google Ads, right? They also do a lot of influencer partnerships, right? So you can see some of the ads that they've created for India, right? So in India, they are, they bring in influencers like Darshan Rawal, Neeti Mohan, right? Who have a lot of followers when it comes to music, and then really bring them in to get in more audience into the products, right? There are other payment mechanisms or which they also use in order to market their product. For example, one of the key things, in fact, about Spotify is their premium models, right? Where they have a mechanism to make money on their free subscriptions as well. Right? So there is free trials with ads, and at the same time, they also have the ability for those who don't want to listen to ads, go to premium upgrades, right? And then they also have a user community which they've now started building, right? So they are encouraging a lot of new content creators to come in and create content, do social sharing, right? Spotify Wrapped is one of their viral engagement platforms that they've also, a viral engagement campaign that they've also created, right? Where Spotify actually shows, how much music or what kind of music have you listened to, and essentially, you can then share it with your group of friends or on your social media, right? Which brings in more customers internally to Spotify, right? So they are building this huge user community around that as well, right? And then there's global expansion, which I already spoke about, right? Local music preferences, new countries, partnerships with the right telecom providers, like an Airtel or a Reliance, right? Packaging it so that people can use it for free for a couple of months, get the benefits or understand the benefits of the product, and then either become paid customers or at least continue to use it for free, where Spotify can earn from ads, right? So these are all several different kinds of things that, just some examples, but of course there are many companies which use various kinds of mechanisms in order to do a go-to-market, right? So with that, I'll come to the last slide and then we'll take questions, right? So we've all seen what GTM is, but GTM is actually an effort from a large number of teams, right? But it is predominantly driven by the product manager and another role called as product marketing managers, right? Who are working hand in glove when a product is getting launched, right? So they're responsible for ensuring that the right message goes out to the right customers through the right channels. And that's super important when it comes to a GTM, right? Which is why it becomes very crucial as a product manager as well to understand what are the key aspects to know when it comes to GTM, right? Now, there are a few other roles that are also involved in this. Content creators, right? Content creators are essentially creating content, whether it is video content, ad content, emails, blogs, thought leadership articles, right? So you need these teams to ensure that the right kind of content is created from a publicity or a go-to-market standpoint. The sales teams. So if you are a sales-led organization, you prepare the sales teams, educate them about the product so that they can go and further talk about your product to different customers and bring them in, right? Then there is customer support team, right? Customer support is also super important. The day the product gets launched, once the consumers start using the products, they will have a lot of customer queries, right? And you want to ensure that when the customers reach out for support, they get the right experience, right? Otherwise, you will acquire a lot of customers, but you will lose them because of bad customer experience, right? And if you think about it, customers are just one bad customer experience away from actually churning from the product, right? So enabling the customer support is also super important. Data analysts, right? Another important key role, right? They help in a few things. One is they help you understand how the product is being used, right? Where are my customers going the most? But they also help you in terms of GTM strategies, right? Which marketing is making the most amount of money, right? Which channel should I follow the most? Should I use Instagram to put paid ads, or should I focus on search engine optimization? Should I involve a celebrity and create ads, right? Which channel actually gives me the most amount of conversion when it comes to using my marketing budget, right? And then there are finance and pricing analysts who are consistently working on figuring out what is the right price point, right? If I've launched something in Bangalore at a certain price point, does it make sense for me to launch the same price in a different geography, like in Ahmedabad or a tier 3 city, right? Or if I want to expand outside of India, how do I price my product, right? When do customers want to buy more, and what kind of discounting can I provide, et cetera, right? So all of these teams come together to make sure the GTM is successful, right? And all of this, by the way, is after you've built a great product, right? So product management doesn't just stop when you build the great product, right? You also need to take care of all of these aspects to make sure you have a very, very successful business, right? So I'll take a pause there of a pretty big monologue, and then I'll now go and take some questions. All right. So let me start with the Q&A pod, and if there are more questions, please feel free to put it on the Q&A pod. One of the questions is, what are the key skills that are important for product managers, right? So there are actually several key skills which are important for product managers. I'll stop sharing the screen at this point so I can take the questions, right? So one of the most important key skills, of course, is the ability to do product design, right? How do you look at a problem statement and create a very unique product which is very easy to use, which doesn't make your customer think about how to use the product, and build it for your customers, right? The second thing is you need to have some research background. Although you have researchers who are working with you, the ability to talk to customers, identify what are their issues, really understand the customer, right? So there's a very famous quote that goes in product management, right, which was told by Henry Ford, that if they went and asked their customers what they wanted, they would have said they wanted faster horses, right? But Henry Ford actually ended up building the Ford Model T, right? The first cars. So it's also super important for a product manager to understand what are their needs of the customers, right? So they are consistently talking to the customers, but also have that, spidey sense of understanding what my customers need, right? They also need execution skills, right? Product managers are working with engineers, designers, product marketeers, bunch of these different other skill sets that we also spoke about in order to build a product and launch a product, right? So having these skill sets to properly program manage it through an agile development methodology is again a very key skill that is required by a product manager, right? And then product marketing, right? Having a little bit of understanding around branding, pricing, all of these are important skills for a product manager, right? Now, these are some of the more harder. The other thing that I totally forgot is metrics, right? Product managers are supposed to be very, very data driven, right? Have the capability to prioritize, right? If you have 10 different features that you want to add to your product, how do you find out which ones are the most important ones? What prioritization criteria can you use? And how do you really use data, both qualitative and quantitative data, to back up why you need to launch a product, right? How do you launch quickly? How do you take the learnings from your product, which you have launched, and make it successful, right? So all of these are some of the hard skills that a product manager needs to have. Apart from that, there are also a lot of soft skills, right? Communication is one. Stakeholder management is one, right? Product manager essentially is a role which is a leadership role, but nobody reports into you, right? So how can you really use, what do you call, use your influence without authority to make sure that you can get your product delivered, right? So these are some of the key skills that are important for a product manager. Okay, still easier to communicate a USP, but how would you define a USP for a very commercialized product? Okay, so there's a question that for a completely new product, it is easier to communicate the USP, but how do you define the USP for a very, very commercialized product, right? So it's simple. I took the example of WhatsApp, right, which is a very, very popular product, right? But it has a very key USP in terms of giving you a platform which has all of your friends and relatives in a single platform, and you can very easily communicate with them in a single platform without paying anything, right? So that's the core value proposition that a product with several features brings in, right? And it's also a non-disruptive product, right? Unlike many other free products which have ads, WhatsApp actually made a very conscious choice to not have ads at all, right? If you look at other meta products like Facebook, Instagram, etc., right, you can do similar things, but there's so many ads, right? But WhatsApp chose a very specific model to make sure the experience is similar to texting, but it's pretty seamless, right? All right, let's see. What key performance indicators and metrics can be tracked to evaluate the effectiveness of our approach and make necessary adjustments? Very good question, right? So when you have launched a product, what are some of the key performance metrics that you look at, right? So by the way, you can divide metrics into two categories. One is your general product metrics as well as marketing metrics, right? So from a product metric, you would want to look at, for example, if you've launched, let's say, an e-commerce product, you would want to look at some product metrics in terms of what time does my consumer take to look at a product till the time they actually purchase the product, right? And how do I look at this entire funnel, improve it? How many people actually look at the listing and then drop off the funnel, right? What is my average sales per day? What is my number of orders, right? What is my revenue? What is my annual or monthly growth rate, right? What is my engagement in terms of daily active usage, monthly active usage, etc. What is the session time, right? For a platform like YouTube, right, they care about session time. How much time are my users spending on my platform on an average, right? So these are called as product metrics, but I think our discussion today is focused around go-to-market, right? So even from a go-to-market standpoint, couple of things that are super important is how are all the marketing mechanisms that I'm using performing, right? So if I am putting out a digital ad, how many people actually come to my website from a Facebook ad versus a Google ad versus an email campaign that I've run, right? So channel effectiveness is one of the key metrics that you look at, right? Now, let's say I'm using Google ads and Facebook ads. For both of these ads, for the people that are landing, how many of them are actually becoming paid users, right? So conversions, that is also super important, right? So if you see that 1,000 people are landing in from Google ads and 1,000 people are also landing in from Facebook ads, but from Google ads, only 10 people are getting converted into paid users, and from Facebook ads, 100 people are getting converted into paid users, right? You would actually stop investing in Google and put the same money in Facebook, right? Because you have a higher conversion ratio, right? So channel effectiveness, return on investment, if you're talking about emails, then click-through rates, open rates, right? These are certain metrics that you would be tracking in order to ensure which is a more effective channel for your product. All right. How easy is it for a program manager to transition to product management? What should be the career trajectory for such person? Actually, it's very easy, right? In fact, I have been lucky to have converted 2 program managers in my career into product managers, right? Again, they were not, program managers wouldn't report into me, but product managers and program managers work very closely with each other when it comes to launching products, right? And I've seen them transition into product management, right? So as a program manager, you are already aware of what are some of the product management skills and what are the project management skills. You're potentially already working with a product manager on a day-to-day basis, right? You're working with engineering teams to get things, shipped. The only things that you might want to learn is how do I do research? How do I create a product strategy? How do I create product roadmaps? Learn prioritization, learn a little bit of GTM, right? So I would say a program manager in general is a very close role to product management. If you really work with a product manager, you can actually ask them to give some tasks that they do on a daily basis to you so that you can learn and convert yourself into a product manager. What are different research methodologies? Okay, some of these are very broad questions, by the way, like worth a separate session of their own, but I'll touch through them very, very quickly, right? So there are different research methodologies that can be used, right? But broadly, it can be categorized into 3 or 4 types. One is called as secondary research. This is research which is already done in the past, which you can leverage, right? So if there is some user interviews that have already happened in the past, you can leverage that. If there are certain organizations which have created thought leadership articles, right? Let's say a Gartner or a Forrester or a Deloitte has created an article on healthcare or artificial intelligence, right? And you're building something on that. You don't have to go and do the same research that they have done. You can rely on them very quickly, right? So that is called as secondary research, which is already available, also called as desk research, right? Then there is primary research, right? Where you can go and speak with the customers directly, right? So that is where interviews come into play, surveys come into play, right? Where you're collecting feedback from customers. Then there's competitive research, right? So if you are in an industry where you have direct competitors, for example, you want to launch a competitor for Uber, Ola, Swiggy, right? You already have some competition. So you can go and look at them. How do they run their business, right? How do they create their product? And study them and see where are your gaps and improve, right? So that is another kind of research called competitive research. Even if you don't have direct competitors, you might have indirect competitors. For example, when Swiggy launched themselves, right? Or one of the Food Panda launched themselves, right? They were actually competing with restaurants and cooking at home, right? To find out what can they provide so that they can convert those users into their customers, right? So that's called competitive research. And then there's also another research called as market research, right? Where you're trying to look at what is my market potential? What are the things that are moving in the industry? What are the macroeconomic conditions? What are the technology trends, right? So you bring in all of these different aspects of research and then try to figure out what's the best product that you should launch. given your customer needs, given the macro wins and things like that. Is go-to-market strategy distribution of product in case of hardware products? Yes, Aditya. So distribution strategy is a part of go-to-market strategy. I wouldn't say it's the entire marketing strategy, right? But if you think about an Apple, right? Apple could be considered a combination of a software and a hardware product, right? Apple iPhones. So they have to create a very good distribution strategy as well when it comes to product launch, right? They can't just have great ads. They can't have Steve Jobs going and launching the product in huge conferences. But when somebody goes to the shop to buy the product, it's not available, right? In fact, they have to create their whole supply chain and make it super solid so that on the day of the launch, people already go and queue the shops, right? To get those products, right? And if the news breaks that the phones are not available, people are not going to buy it, right? So yes, distribution in case of hardware products is part of your go-to-market strategy.
Premanku, I believe that we have answered a lot of questions and we are running short of time. So if you can just take one last question so that we can wind up with the Q&A session.
For sure. So there are too many questions and I can't choose, so I'll just take it from the Q&A pod, whichever is the next one. Okay, how can we check customers' willingness to pay for a product in a retail market, right? Great question. Several ways, right? Firstly, whenever you build a product, you should always do the pricing conversation right at the beginning, right? So you shouldn't build a product and then try to slap a price on top of it, right? Whenever you're building the product, have the pricing conversation first, right? That, hey, I'm building this t-shirt, right? Or I'm building this app. What are you going to pay for it, right? That's the first thing. You do some surveys, you figure out who's your ideal customer profile. You find out that for a product like what you're building, what is the customer's willingness to pay, right? And you can create some very creative surveys for that. You can say that, hey, I'm launching this product. I'm going to price it at 200 rupees, right? What do you think about the pricing? Is it too less, kind of fine, or too expensive, right? And take the survey of, let's say 1,000, 2,000 people, right? You'll start seeing a pattern. That's one. Secondly, after you've launched the product, run some experiments, right? Take the product, put it on an e-commerce website, right? Sell it for 100 rupees to a group of people who land on your product, and sell it for 110, 120 rupees to another group, right? And figure out which group is converting more, right? Which one gives you maximum profit? Maybe there is more conversions on the 100 rupees, obviously, because it's cheaper, but it's only a 2% conversion, 2% more conversion than the 120 rupees product, right? So does it really make sense for you to price it at 100 rupees and not keep it at 120, right? So find that optimal way through running some sort of experiments, right? So that is another way. Run discount campaigns, right? What does Amazon do, right? They will price the product slightly higher, but they'll run a lot of discounts, right? And they'll do experiments with those discounts to figure out what is the most optimal discount that I can run with, where I have the largest conversion, and at the same time, I have the largest profit, right? So you can do a bunch of these things in order to determine what is the right price point, right? Pricing, again, is an art, right? You can never get it absolutely right? Even if you go to the largest giants, they will never be able to say that I've got my pricing right. Right? So it's an experiment play. You keep doing it, and then you figure out which one is the most optimal for you at a given stage. Cool. So with that, I will hand it over to Mahima and Sonali.
Thanks a lot, Premanku, for an insightful session. And indeed, I hope people did enjoy the session, and we covered a lot of parts of go-to-market strategy, and we tried our best to answer maximum of the questions. Thanks, Premanku, for answering all the questions in such a short span of time. And it was great to have you on board for this session. Thank you so much for taking out time for this program.
Thank you.
Everyone, now we have Sonali Narula here with us. Sonali will be taking you through the programs that are offered by Hero Vired in the domain of product management, and she'll be helping you understand how you can upskill in that particular domain. Over to you, Sonali.
Yeah, sure. So, Mahima, just let me know once you see my screen.
Yeah. Do you want me to run the poll?
Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead with that.
Yeah. Guys, I hope you are able to see the poll on your screen. Sonali, if you can confirm. Kindly please go ahead and take the poll. This will help us understand better how many of you are actually, thinking about learning about product management and planning to upskill. I think, Sonali, a lot of people have already voted, and we have a good number of people who are planning to get a career done in product management and are planning to upskill.
Sure. So,
I think we can end the poll now.
Mahima, yeah, sure.
I hope you can see the results, Sonali.
I can. Thank you. So before I move ahead in this session, Premanku, thank you so much for helping us understand how the GTM exactly works. And what I have understood in this span of time is it is more around understanding or ideating around the new strategies that we can build, right? Designing them, building them, and then pushing that to the market. And based upon the customer preferences, different kinds of things that happens in the entire life cycle of the product, right? So the good news is that we have a program into product management that actually talks about this GTM strategy in brief. And not just this GTM strategy, but multiple other strategies as well, which a product manager applies in his journey day to day. So the program that that we will be talking about now is a program that is coming in collaboration with INSEAD Business School. That's an executive program into product management. And before we move ahead, with the what exactly the program offers and everything, I would just take a minute and talk about what exactly is INSEAD Business School. So INSEAD Business School is one of the top leading business schools of the world. And this is a 50-50% collaboration where 50% of the content of all to the learners will be pushed by the INSEAD faculties themselves. And we are covering almost every aspect of product management in our program, wherein we also talk about the product development tools and techniques that one has to learn, including some tools like Google Analytics, Figma, Miro, Jira, and Balsamiq. Moving ahead to the curriculum of the program. So we were just talking about go-to-market strategy that is mentioned here in the brochure and in the curriculum, right? And Premanku has very well explained, what exactly GTM is, go-to-market strategy is. What other things that, I would like to mention is the entire product roadmap, starting from understanding the customers, ideating around the product, understanding, what is the market segment that we want to, move into. Premanku also mentioned that, stakeholder management and collaboration are one of the soft skills that any product manager needs to work upon. So, let it be soft skills or let it be hard skills that any product manager requires in his or her journey are all covered in this program duration. Understanding how can one launch their products, not just in the Indian market, but globally. Understanding the vision and mission of the product and setting strategies according to that. Understanding the user and the market, setting the right price for the product, understanding how the revenue model works. As the entire industry, if we look at right now, is working on unit economics, where people or investors, to be specific, are not just targeting companies who are having good revenues, but they are looking at sustainable development of companies. So how do you really make your company or your product sustainable and develop it accordingly? and how you can monetize out of it. I mean, sustainable development also means profits. So how you can fetch those profits to your organization for your products. How do you do analysis? How do you develop your product? How do you design your product? And obviously go to market strategy is a part of the program curriculum. So these are, different set of things that will be taught to our learners in this particular program duration, that is 6 months. And in this 6 months, this is not just a journey that you will take theoretically, but this is a journey that you will take practically as well, because we have multiple case studies, assignments, and we also have capstone project that you will be doing during this program, which will help you not just to understand product management, but also to build a very strong portfolio for yourself. So in brief, this is what I can talk about in the program. And I would love to answer all the questions that you might have, and anything that you want to know in specific about the program that we are offering. So if in case you have any questions, you can feel free to post these questions in the Q&A section. Also, we have Premanku with us. So if in case you have any questions for Premanku, I hope he is happy to answer them as well.
Yep.
Guys, the floor is open for your questions. You can just put down your questions in the Q&A section or in the chat box, and we have both Sonali and Premanku, and I don't think so there will be a better opportunity to learn from the expert himself and get your questions answered.
I see a question where Harsha is asking if, that she's a fresh engineering graduate who's looking to move into product management. So where she can start from? See, Harsha, what I can answer is you can start from an associate product manager role. You have to plan on doing a program that is, built in a way that can help you give the exposure of a, product manager. And post the program, you can certainly expect to move into product management. Obviously from an associate level in the starting, but yeah, in the 4 to 5 years, you can certainly move to a product manager role, or like Premanku in 7 years as a senior product manager role as well.
Premanku, I think we have a question for you from Tarun, and if you could just scroll up a little, because he has asked a lot of questions. And
yeah, so Tarun is on a CPM batch. So maybe what I can do is I can answer this question offline, because this question itself is going to take a little bit of time, but I'll give a very high level answer at this point, right? Because it's a deep question, right? So for everybody, the question is, so Tarun, you have typed it twice. I think it's the same thing, right? Yeah, it's the same thing.
yeah.
Okay, cool. So the question is around MVP prioritization, right? So for everybody, again, not going very deep into the term, but MVP stands for a minimum viable product, right? What does a minimum viable product mean? Unlike in the waterfall days, these days products are launched very, very quickly, right? So you want to keep a small working part of the product, launch it, see what kind of a customer feedback you're receiving, and then continuously improve the product, keep on adding features to it, right? Instead of waiting for getting the perfect product out, right? So there's also something called about an MVP, right? If the first version of your product is not something that you are, unhappy about, then it's not really an MVP, right? Having said that, you don't compromise on quality, but you basically go with the minimal amount of features with which you can make an impact in the for the customer segment that you're launching it for, right? So the question that Tarun has is, which methods can be used in order to prioritize MVP features on the impact and feasibility of the feature, right? And he has already mentioned, I think he has already answered some of the questions, some of it himself, right? So there are several prioritization mechanisms that can be used, right? There's no one answer to which one should be used. It depends on the problem statement that you're trying to solve. For example, if you are launching a competitor for Uber, for example, right? And you're targeting the exact same customer segment, then you can use a framework like Moscow, right? Which stands for must have, should have, could have, and won't have features, right? So which ones are the absolute must have? right? If you're launching something which is going to compete with Uber, I think some of the absolute must-haves is the ability to have the right cars, right? The ability to pay online, the ability to track where your driver is, right? A driver app which sends requests to the driver, right? An algorithm which can manage demand and supply where the customer doesn't have to wait for a very long time after they've requested a cab, right? Lesser cancellations, right? These are certain things which are must-haves, right? What could be certain should-haves, right? What are things that are good to have, but maybe something which is probably not as much required in the first release, right? So for example, things such as having all the payment methodologies that are available in Uber, right? Maybe a should have, but not a must have, right? You can start with, if you're launching in India, maybe you can start with a cash payment and a Google Pay integration, right? That's probably fine for you to launch. And then you can go ahead and integrate with all sorts of debit and credit cards, right? So that's one framework. And then there are other more popular frameworks like RISE, right? Which are granular. RISE stands for reach, impact, confidence, and effort, right? So you take a look at every feature and figure out what is their reach going to be, what is their impact going to be, what is their confidence, what is your confidence that it will be successful, and also what is the effort, right? Effort is also a major player in determining the priority of a product, right? If there is a product which makes a medium impact but has a huge effort in terms of engineering, right? Then maybe you don't prioritize that. You could sometimes even prioritize a low impact feature with a very low engineering effort, right? Because it's easy to take it out to the market, right? So that's what you can use one or more of these frameworks in order to prioritize your features, right? Then the other part of the question is, why is it important to prioritize MVP features, right? So to validate product assumptions or hypothesis, or to launch the product faster, right? So a couple of things, right? One is you will always, whenever you're launching an MVP, you will always have list of features that you could put in the product and went ahead and launched it, right? But you will not have the engineering bandwidth or the operational bandwidth or the investment in order to do that, right? So you need to ruthlessly prioritize, and that's a key skill of a product manager, right? Prioritization. In fact, in the course that Sonali was displaying, prioritization is one of the key aspects, right? And you prioritize at different levels. You prioritize what needs to be built. You prioritize what needs to be researched. You prioritize which feature needs to be cut, which features needs to be taken, right? You prioritize what communications channels will I use when it comes to launching, right? So the goal of an MVP and prioritization is to make sure that given your limited resources, how can you build a product which is not subpar, but at the same time, it doesn't have everything, right? Because otherwise you'll take years to build the product. And then when you launch it, you realize that your customer's requirement has changed, right? Or you didn't build something that was required by them. You can cut your losses if you're able to launch quickly with the minimum set of features which you think are the most impactful for your customers, launch it, and then take feedback and slowly keep on improving, right? That is why prioritization of an MVP is important.
I think, Sonali, we have a few questions for you as well in the chat, in the Q&A section.
Sure. So the question is, in the end of the program, will we be getting a certification? Yes, you will be getting a certification, which will be a collaborative certificate of INSEAD and Hero Vired. Premanku, if you can answer this question. Shravan is saying that he's a QA engineer. So is it possible for him to transition into product management role?
Yeah, absolutely. So Shravan, I'm actually an example of, I started my career as a QA, right? And I haven't taken an MBA, right? And I've transitioned into product management. So it's very much possible, right? You have an example, who you have heard from, who transitioned from a QA to product management, right? And I've done product management in some very decent organizations as well, right? Atlassian, Salesforce, Compass. So yeah, that's possible.
That's the reason why I wanted you to answer this question. So Mahima, I do not really see any other questions.
Sure, Sonali. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a lovely audience. And before we, come to the end of this session,